To this point, all the serial killers we've discussed have been caught. Killers like John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and Ed Gein were all put to a stop to their dastardly killings. And yet, we still don't feel safe. The world is a scary place. People die for no reason. There are wars heard about in the news. We have riots what seems like every day. People even mysteriously vanish. And the fact that some serial killers have never been caught, and others are still out there, does nothing to help the world's situation. In fact, it makes it an even scarier place to live in. When discussing such facts, two serial killers come to mind. Two killers who had been able to escape the law. Those being Jack the Ripper and the Zodiac Killer, of which we will be focusing on the latter for this installment. Unlike other serial killers we've discussed, we have no clue who the Zodiac actually was. That being so, we can't approach this killer like any of the others. For starters, we can't discuss the history behind him because we don't know who he is. So it's best to start off with a quick synopsis. The self-titled Zodiac Killer was directly linked to at least 5 different murders. His murders took place between 1968 and 1969, but may have been responsible for more in Northern California. After he taunted the police for a few years, 1969 to 1974, communication from the killer stopped abruptly. In addition, despite a massive search to find the Zodiac, nothing came from it. Even though the police had countless suspects, no one was arrested, and to this day, the case of the Zodiac remains unsolved, and an open case. The first official murder, or murders rather, happened late one night on December 20th, 1968. The victims were 17-year-old David Faraday and his 16-year-old girlfriend Betty Lou Jensen. The two were shot to death near their car at a remote spot on Lake Herman Road on the outskirts of Vallejo, California. When officials arrived on the scene, they were greeted with the two corpses lying still on the ground facing one another, and police were left puzzled as they could not indicate any motive for the killings, nor could they identify any suspect. The Zodiac's killing spree would continue the following year, on July 5th, 1969. The next two targets of the Zodiac were Darlene Ferrin, age 22, and her boyfriend, Mike Maggio, age 19. Similar to the murders of Faraday and Jensen, the two were parked in a remote area in Vallejo, California. According to Maggio, who survived the encounter, the two were just talking when a man pulled up to their car and aimed a flashlight towards the couple. Blinded by the light, Maggio heard his girlfriend scream, and then the sound of a gunshot. Multiple shots were fired after that, where Ferrin died instantly, and Maggio only severely wounded. Within the hour, an anonymous man, presumed to be the Zodiac, called the Vallejo Police Department, giving them the location of the crime scene, and claiming responsibility for both that attack and the 1968 murders of Faraday and Jensen. Police rushed to the scene with an ambulance at hand, and rushed Maggio to the hospital. But regardless of the confession and Maggio's description of the attacker, nothing happened to further the investigation. The following month, the 1st of August, the San Francisco Examiner, San Francisco Chronicle, and Vallejo Times-Herald were each sent a similar letter, with similar writing, that said, "Dear Editor, I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman." Moreover, the letters contained details only the killer would have known, and so the newspapers published them, although they only did so because the killer went on to threaten further attacks if the letters weren't printed on the front page of the papers. More remarkable, the letters had printed on them the first initial sign of the Zodiac, a circle with a drawn cross. Furthermore, the letters also contained a 3-part cipher that gave the name of the serial killer, though to this day, some have yet to be solved. Soon after, the FBI got involved to help the Bay Area police capture the killer. Only a few days later, after they began their investigation, the tabloids would soon receive another letter. This one reading, "Dear Editor, this is the Zodiac speaking," and it also described the murders in detail and taunted police for not having been able to crack his code or catch him. One of the few ciphers was actually solved by a high school teacher, Donald Hardin, and his wife Betty. Their discovery, however, only led them to discover the killer's rantings, specifically reading, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." On the evening of September 27th, 1969, the Zodiac Killer struck again. This time, a young couple, Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell. The two were alone on an isolated part of the shore of Lake Berryessa. This time, the Zodiac reportedly confronted the two in full costume. He approached them wearing a hood, and a shirt wearing his signature circle and cross. He tied them up and then proceeded to stab them multiple times. In the brutality, he had the bright idea to leave a message scrawled in their blood on their car door for the police. After leaving the scene, he called the police and claimed responsibility. Both Hartnell and Shepard were in critical condition, but they lived to tell the tale. Only 2 weeks later would the community find the Zodiac killing another, this time taxi driver Paul Stein. The murder initially didn't fit the Zodiac's MO, and originally wasn't considered as part of the Zodiac's string of murders. However, 3 days later, the Zodiac would send a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle, claiming responsibility for the murder. The Zodiac Killer continued to mock the police for 5 years, and was even tied to 5 more murders. However, after 5 years, sudden communications with the Zodiac stopped, and he was never heard from again. Although he was never caught, there were several suspects who all seemed to fit the Zodiac's profile. To name a few, some suspects were Richard Guy Kowalski, Lawrence Kane, Earl Van Best Jr., Theodore J. Kaczynski, Guy Hendrickson, and Arthur Lee Allen, who became the prime suspect, and is vastly considered by the masses to actually be the Zodiac. The Zodiac Killer, to this day, has yet to be caught. No one knows who he really was, or if he is even still alive. However, what he did leave behind was a huge legacy. The Zodiac Killer spawned many books, films, and even conspiracy theories. A recent one, as humorous as it may be, was that of Ted Cruz being the Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac even made it into some video games, most notably as a huge side quest in Watch Dogs 2. There is no denying the Zodiac had to be extremely clever to evade the police, his cunning nature being what made him such an interesting case study. Well, with that out of the way, let me leave you with this little factoid. Did you know, in one of the letters the Zodiac sent to the news publishers, he reviewed the movie The Exorcist, calling it the best satirical comedy he's ever seen.